And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship here in the Spartak Arena from Katowice, Poland. We have Deficio joining us at the desk. Thank you very much for joining us. Bear with me for a second, because the first semi-final has been locked in. It's an all-LCS affair between Cloud9 and Fnatic. We are now going to kick off the Group B games with the losers match that was delayed from yesterday to today. Gambit taking on World Elite. The winner of this game faces off against the Taipei Assassins. The winner of that game faces off against the gatekeepers of the grand final of 7 tournaments, KT Rolster Bullets. So whichever team is going that way, it's going to be a tough path. Let's dial it all the way back. Gambit versus WE. Let's get some initial thoughts. Deficio, what's your take on this game? What are you anticipating?
Well, if we look from yesterday's game, the early game for both teams were not good enough. That's what we have to say. So now they're going against each other. Of course, we saw Fnatic also yesterday having a weak early game. They fixed it today against IG. Gambit can do the same. Team WE can do the same. So for me, going into this game, I have absolutely no idea who's going to be the favorite. And I have no idea if the teams are underperforming or they're just not simply good enough.
Honestly, I like Gambit from what I saw yesterday more than WE because of Gambit lost by individual mistakes. They still tried to get some teamwork going even though they were super far behind. They almost make it work being that far behind. What we saw from WE was a full AD comp. You played extremely passive in the early game where you actually want to play super aggressive. And that they really need to step up if they want to play a full AD comp again.
Well, we'll see what they do. We'll carry on talking about those in just a minute. Let's actually just remind everybody at home of who the players are on each team. Starting with Gambit, they will be on blue side for this matchup. The Swag Lord Darian, Diamond, Alex, Genja, and Edward. Over on the other side of the rift, it is going to be Team WE with Salme up in the top lane, Ruo in the jungle, Sokim in the mid lane, Wei Zhao, and Conan as your AD carry and support. Now, I want to start talking a little bit more in depth about Team WE because I personally expected more. Knowing Salme, knowing Wei Zhao have been around for a long time, admittedly, not necessarily at the peaks of maybe their performances. You know, Wei Zhao in particular, he really didn't step up. He didn't shine yesterday in my mind, got caught out a couple of times. Sokim played Yasuo, nowhere near the same level that Zitai's Yasuo was. So what's your take on the individual players and their abilities coming to this one, Froggen?
For Sukim's Yasuo, I think he should probably stay away from it. He was only running 1% crit chance instead of the usual 5%, so he didn't have a 100% crit chance once he finished Static Shift and Infinity Edge. And at the same time, he was going for double Dawn's Blade into a Vampiric Scepter, despite that he's having 6% lifesteal versus a Gragas that he should be able to lane against without buying sustain items. And that delayed his power spike by extreme amount by not getting the Static Shift. He had no mobility, he was basically just laning and farming up. Compared to Zitai's Yasuo, extremely aggressive, going for the Static Shift instantly. He had the 5% in crit rune, so he has 100% once he finished Static Shift and Infinity Edge. So I would love to see some more of the standard picks we've seen from LPL, from like 6 or Orianna on him. I would love to see that.
I have to agree. I mean, his Yasuo yesterday was not impressive at all. It didn't work for him. And looking at the bot lane, I think they just completely underestimated Morgana and what she can actually do because he was binding after binding onto Wei Zhao. It simply meant he just got poked down. The flash was gone from level 1 because he stayed out in the river and they tried to go towards him. Medias with an early gank. Of course, the advantage got pushed towards Cloud9's bot lane, but they really used it to just shut him down. And he got binding after binding. He couldn't do anything to get back in the lane. And for me, WE, clearly they are good players because they are very strong in the LPL, very early game based meta, so of course laning wise they are good players. I think they had an off day yesterday, and I think today we're going to see a completely different WE team.
How big of an impact was Meteos' ganks in the victory yesterday where Cloud9 was able to secure that win against WE? I mean, you know, Meteos went bottom lane, he helped out the lane, he went top lane, got that gank onto Salme's Renekton, if I recall correctly. You know, got him shut down a little bit more. You know, tower diving on Renekton, we were discussing how difficult it was. Was there anything WE could have done to prevent that? Or was it just Cloud9 really playing out of their skin?
I feel like Medius just played absolutely perfect. Like his ganking timing was perfect. The fact that they forced the flash at level 1 and he simply went down bot lane at level 3. It's actually something we have seen him do in the NALCS where he's often going bot lane early on to help them out. And just the fact that WE weren't ready for his ganking paths simply meant that it was so easy for him to just move around, get the right ganks in, and then they overextended the lanes. You have to, when you have no flash level 1 on your AD carry, or when you're playing Renekton, you need to be careful not being ganked because you will have the pressure. Everyone knows you will have the pressure. You push up the lane, and you need to play careful from there on to simply not die from the gank, and they didn't.
Yeah, I think Meteors, he's super efficient. Like,
Yeah.
all the ganks you saw him do, bottom lane first, he forces them back, he makes them blow the summoners. I think they could actually have killed it if killed the Beishao,
Yeah,
if I recall
survive the
correctly.
barrier of one
And
auto
if they,
attack.
if they played it better, I think they could have killed
Yeah.
him. Afterwards, he goes back into the jungle, farms until he's level 5, while High has hit level 6 in the mid lane. They roam together to the top lane to dive the Renekton. At the same time, Balls is hitting level 6. So I would say extremely efficient play from Meteors and High is leading them into a really strong mid game.
Well, let's take a look now at this particular matchup, Gambit versus WE. This is the match that determines who's going to battle TPA, so there's a very long road ahead for both of these teams. What sort of champions are we going to be considering? I mean, do you think WE would find Kha'Zix ban-worthy? Considering how strong Meteors was in it yesterday, they first picked it in both of their games, if memory serves correctly. And we also know that High can play them in the mid lane, so there is the option that they can swap it around if they want to, outside of the usual picks, the Elises, etc. You know, what's your take on priority picks for both of these teams?
Well, looking towards Gambit side, what you want to ban away, you want to avoid Alex playing the Assassins, because it's what he likes to do, it's what Gambit is built around. The Katowice yesterday didn't work for him. I can still see him pick it again, and he simply said, I made a mistake, I won't do it again, and I can still play Katowice, because it's clearly something they've been working on, and it's something they want to use where they can then put a lot of focus on the other lanes and have Katowice ultimate coming in to help. So in that case, I can see the Katowice pick being there. I don't think it's going to be banned away. Morgana for Edward, he's been playing it beforehand, and maybe WE are scared of it now because they don't know exactly how to play against it, so simply want to take it away, don't want to risk anything. Otherwise, we can just see Edward playing the standard supports for him.
Yeah, I think, especially the Kartus pick, I think it was a good pick. And if he still feels comfortable playing Kartus, maybe up against the Yasuo from Sukim, then he should definitely go for it. Kartus is extremely good against the full AD comms coming out of the Chinese teams, and I would really love to see it work.
Well, think about your predictions. I want to find out what you guys at home have been voting for. If you head over to eslgaming.com, click on the Katowice link, then you can actually start voting on the polls. And the current percentage is 83% in favor of Gambit. A lot of people looking for the repeat of last year. Slow start for Gambit, bouncing back. Prediction, Gambit or WE, not Cloud9 like I got confused a moment ago. Neither of you were strong enough to tell me otherwise. So who is it, Gambit or WE?
I want to give it to Gambit. I think they're going to bounce back. We've seen them in the past. When they lose a game, they just come in for the next game. Completely different team, just rolling over the early game. I expect them to do the same here.
I agree. I think Gambit is going to take it as well. I think if they don't mess up the pick and bans, I think they will win.
Well, we'll have to see how those picks and bans go. Players are just about ready, so we're going to throw this one over to Shox so she can introduce the teams on stage.
Thank you very much, guys. And it is indeed time to meet our teams right here on stage. And first up, on the blue side, they were victorious here last year, but they need your support right now. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Gambit! And on the red side, not having the best day yesterday either, fighting their way back from the lower bracket. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Team WE. What a fantastic matchup we've got coming up right here. So without further ado, let's send it over to our lovely casters.
Thank you very much, Shox. My name is Joe Miller. I'm joined by Crepo here for our game. And, well, what a game it promises to be. Is this typical Gambit? I have to say, so far, today has been Europe Day, but are Gambit going to do the same? Because traditionally, they're rubbish on day one. We saw that last year. I mean, here in Katowice, they got through the group stage on time difference. Can they do it again today?
It would be typical Gambit if they end up showing up and after a rather abysmal performance yesterday and just show everybody like why we always talk about never underestimating Gambit, and I can see it within the realm of possibilities. However, Team WE might just show up as well. This is still a strong team coming out of the Chinese region, so both teams have a lot to win.
So what do we think about the game itself? Gambit yesterday, let's be honest, they got destroyed by the Taipei Assassins. We then saw Cloud9 go on to do the same to TPA. Like, is that a sign of really how strong Gambit are right now, or was that just a bad day?
See, that's not how League works, though, because you can say, okay, X team beat Y, and then Z beats Y, therefore Z is way better than X, but it doesn't work that way, because for the same argument, we could say, okay, XDG beat Cloud9 in the North American Summers, and I'm not hating on XDG here, but that we can't suddenly draw the conclusion that XDG would suddenly win this event. You know, every match has to be played until we're done. Some teams are like rock, paper, scissors. Back in the day, we had a couple of those teams. We would constantly beat them online, and they would constantly beat Gambit, and then Gambit would beat us, for example, in some of those tournaments. So every match has to be played. I have no idea how this one's going to play out. I don't have enough research myself on to see which WE showed up yesterday, how much better they can be, how much worse they can be. I feel both teams made some crucial mistakes. I think both teams had a day to work on those mistakes. And I'm just looking forward to what they bring to the table today.
Yeah, and I think we've seen overnight that, you know, those hours, albeit them just a few hours, can really make a difference to both of these teams. If Gambit would have played this game last night, maybe they wouldn't have been able to shake that off. For them, I think is obviously better the fact that they've had the time. Due to some unfortunate delays, of course, this game moved to today rather than being played at the end of yesterday. You can see there how high-spirited Gambit are. I met Edward backstage. He promised me he's going to play Soraka, maybe, possibly, depending on the team comp that he's up against. And they were just a lot more confident than the very much down Gambit that I saw yesterday.
Yeah, they generally bounce back really well. Sure, they'll get emotional after the game and they'll walk away. But whenever Gambit performs poorly, they have so much pride in between them all that they just want to show up the next day, and they'll get even more hungry to win this game. I wonder if they did their research against WE and ban out like key factors, because we saw IG being really dominant yesterday and almost beating the Bullets, and now their key player got targeted with key bans that just disrupted that composition. They played twice, and they were looking as strong in the following game. So you can definitely use the research from day one, even if it was, I believe, only one game each of these teams played, to use that to your advantage.
Well, we are into the bans and the picks now, and we can see that already Gambit banning out Ziggs and Caitlyn. Caitlyn, a ban that Gambit are quite happy to settle with because Genja doesn't really play Caitlyn at all. Banning out Thresh as well there on the other side. World Elite banning out Annie and Lee Sin for the start.
This actually leaves Leona as the only support left of the original like trifecta of supports that arise this season. I wonder if Eddie is looking for a Morgana pick here, because the Chinese regions doesn't normally play it. You have to remember though, the Chinese team have barely practiced, if at all practiced, on the 4.3 patch. So everything they do and build is based on speculation. So we have to cut them some slack. European teams have been playing on this for 1.5 weeks, so they're used to how these champions change. And it's a pretty big patch change for supports. The entire landscape of itemization is changed on the bot lane. Where we see Gambit pick up a Lulu first pick, and that's a really solid choice in my opinion.
Lulu first pick, and surely going to go into the hands of Alex from this one. I mean, Darian's...
Could never know. I'm done predicting Darian's champions.
Yeah, I don't see Darian playing Lulu in this one. We'll see about that one. World Elite actually locking in, no qualms, very, very fast lock-in on the Renekton there.
Yeah, Renekton's just a solid top lane champion. He does well in the Renekton-Shyvana matchup. And in these like offline tournament matches, you want to put the early pressure on the opponent. Cassidy makes it through. This indicates that both teams are fine with it going through the pick phase. So I'd be surprised if Gambit suddenly looks to pick it up here. If they do it, it'll be on the last rotation. Same for WE. If they want to pick up Cassidy, it'll be on the last rotation. Thing about the Lulus, given the fact that Thresh and Annie are banned out, and I'm not sure about what the support player for WE plays, if his Leona isn't too stellar, we might see Edward and Lulu support and let Alex maybe try and bait the other counter pick.
Well, it looks like Gambit are going to be locking in their jungler and top lane here. Aatrox, a champion that Darian... we were talking about Lulu and Darian's style. I think Aatrox fits Darian a lot better because you've got that GA there built in, and you know he likes to play, okay, jump in, do the damage, and get out with a kill or without a kill. Obviously, a lot safer than a lot of top lane champions these days as well.
And out of these three picks, we can already see some synergy emerge. Aatrox jumping in, getting the Lulu ulti, and just getting really tanky and slowing people around him, as well as E flanking from the side, putting an AoE slow on the enemy team. This is already something that we can see is very Gambit-esque, you know. Diamond Pugs goes along the side, Darren just goes in, everyone's like, why is this guy jumping in again? Boom, E from the side, and you have a team fight going on, and immediately you're fighting. Good response, it seems though, by WE, by going as well. They say, okay, you want to fight? We'll fight you. Tanky support in Leona. Vida can go to the back line and get the AD carry. If not, just lock one target down. It's really hard to gank a Renekton as well with an Eve. So, and now we get to the point. Is he considering Soraka, or did he just play you? So he can get more hype out of
He
his
probably
picks?
played me, let's be honest. He's Edward, the king of trolls. We did see a Vi coming in there. I'm wondering if we're actually going to see a Yasuo maybe for them by the end of it. But if we look, Leona in there, Morgana support is a massive probability in this one. Gambit at this point looking for AD carry and support. We do see that obviously Caitlyn banned out, not really a champion anyway that Genja plays. Lucian already gone away from him. Where is he going to go?
For the composition, Sivir would fit. I think Sivir Morgana is a good lane. It's hard to play against Leona Lucian if the Leona knows how to play against the Morgana. I actually like what he does with Varus. I think that's a good fix for this lane. Morgana binds into Varus ulti, Morgana binds into Varus poke on lane. Very potent. If Morg misses a binding, her zone drops on lane, which means she has to back off, which means AD carry has to back off. Varus has 2 spells with which he can farm from a pretty long range, so a good distance, put in between the enemy bot lane. Leona can't commit on the Varus. I'm kind of worried for Genja if Black Shield is ever down. He's going to get blown up by Ulti and by the Solar Flare from Leona. However, look at the Black Shield, what it can do, what work it can do for Gambit. It can block 3 or 4 like essential crowd control effects. It can block 2 of them at the same time most of the time, unless it's the Gragas explosive cask. Well, then the Black Shield is gone. But it's definitely a really good pickup in my opinion for Edward.
I talked about Yasuo with the fact that with the synergy there of Vi, but against Lulu, not the best of lanes anyway. Definitely going to take a lot of damage, although we have seen that the Yasuo from the Chinese teams has been particularly good. In this case though, it will actually be Gragas coming in, a much safer lane there for Sukim.
We made the comment that all the Chinese teams were going for full AD composition so far, so I do like that they pick up this AP component. We saw how strong Gragas gets towards the late game, and when Pekka played it, those casks at the start of the game, they weren't going all too well, but once he figured out when to throw them, and he got more AP every time he learned his lesson, eventually once he hit 3 or 4 people, he was deciding these team fights on his own with just 1 barrel, and it's just such a strong pick, and I'm a big fan of Gragas.
But how does that work out in the lane against Lulu? Who's going to have the edge in that one?
I'm not an expert on it, but I feel both of them can do fine. Lulu can poke Gragas down, but Gragas, whenever Lulu goes in, if she ever goes too close, a body slam could prove fatal if the jungler shows up. It's going to be tricky with the Evelyn, but I think Gragas can keep his distance well enough and be somewhat safe enough to avoid those ganks. He has a gap closer and a flash to get away. Renekton is really hard to gank. I really like if an Eve can get behind a Leona and go in as Leona goes aggressive, so Diamondprox might want to look at the bot lane. However, Evelyn, while doing a lot of damage, is pretty weak if she ganks and she gets turned on. So if she gets spotted before she gets into the lane in the right position, Evelyn's very prone to losing her double buffs immediately. So I don't see Diamond actually falling for that. He's a really good jungler, but it can happen. So Diamond's at risk of ganking any of these lanes, so you have to be careful.
Gambit here, you see there Alex Itch on your screens, and well, it's the case for Gambit. They've done it so many times. Day one, they come out in the group stage, they somehow scrape through the group with like 20 seconds faster win and slower loss than everyone else, I think it was, or something like that in Katowice here last year. This time around a little bit different though. If they lose this game, they are out of the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship. No chance to claim themselves a second title. Of course, they won the Intel Extreme Masters World Championship back in 2012, but we are getting into game. It's Gambit versus Team WE. Repo, who are you favoring for this one?
Given the compositions, I like both teams, honestly. It's going to depend on a lot how teams survive and outscale the early game. Looking definitely at that Renekton matchup up top, how is he going to do? Thing I'm wondering about is Gambit going to go for their typical Gambit invade? It works really well against melee supports. If you don't know what the typical Gambit invade is, it would be Genja and Edward running to the enemy blue buff, trying to stop the jungler there, just harass them for a little time. And meanwhile, the Diamond would solo one of his buffs, and this could lead into like a buff advantage or a quicker jungle speed for Diamondprox. Evelyn is one of the quickest junglers, can solo red as well and just clean out on her own. And you can basically not leash her on Evelyn, and then you don't give away against the enemy, like where is she gonna go, and that's really good. But they're going in for a little invade, it seems.
Oh, Genja needs to get away from this one. All 5 men there from WE pushing down towards that tri-brush. And
Not so efficient.
yeah, as they see Genja there, they will in fact start to back away from that one.
And see, this is Gambit is reacting really well. They say, okay, you're putting 5 people in the bottom side of the map. I don't really have too many wards on me, but I'll just walk into your jungle. Diamond procs cover my exit. You're invisible anyways. If they're not here in time, I'll just drop a ward, and immediately we have jungler information. And that's what's been happening a lot these later games in the LCS. People have been doing leashless buffs, which means it doesn't give the information away against the enemy. But W is reacting, and this Renekton is just here to scout if Gambit is starting on a red buff. That's all he's doing. And scouts them out, and now they have to fall back. So good reaction play by both teams.
Actually, Sukim is moving forward towards the enemy blue and will, in fact, put a ward down there. Let's talk about the starting items here, specifically the supports. We see that Spell Thieves has been picked up there by Morgana. Doran Shield on the other side for Leona.
I like both items. This is what I would do in both of the matchups. Good body slam coming on Alex, just putting a little of the aggression on. Right now, they don't have their wards, WE, but they don't need them because they know where the jungler starts, they know where he's going to go next. They can basically predict into the future for at least 2 minutes.
Well, we see already a bit of action between the 2 AD carries. Edward taking some damage in there as well down on this bottom lane. Don't forget, if you're just joining us here for the start of this one, this is the losers match. Both these teams losing out in round 1. And basically you have to win at this stage. Actually, Sukim going very, very low here. Diamond coming in. No ignite, of course, though, and not able to actually finish off.
See, I want to point out a couple of things about bot lane, about how they win the push, but actually, as we see that this Conan's going in with Xenoblade, but he gets back shielded and then turned by Genja.
Not too much damage at this stage of the game. There's a piercing arrow actually coming through, and Conan falling a little bit low, but we can see the Gambit going for this red buff. We saw some very early wards coming down as the red buff resetting itself there, getting a bit of a heal off, and Diamond, he's going to take a little bit more time to finish that one off, but does manage to pick up the red. Meanwhile, Ruo is going over towards Gambit's
he has to be quick, because Gambit knows that they forced him out, and now Diamondbucks is going to go straight to his red, I believe, to just find him out and spot him if he can get him in time. However, he's being distracted by just getting free poke on Sukim on the mid lane, so that's good for Gambit especially.
And see red buff picked up on the other side for for WE. You see that one smited away, and actually Ruo just waiting around and knowing that Diamond is going to come over and actually check that one. In the end, finishes off, and there he's Darren up in the top lane. Ignite actually burning away there. A lot of damage coming in. He does, of course, have his blood well available as Alex getting a bit of harassment there from Ruo, the jungler of WE.
Conan's level 2 and he's roaming around the map, and I'm not a big fan of that. Diamond spots him out. He's just going to poke him down. This is really bad for him.
And it's going to be a lot of damage coming in as well. We see the stun actually falling, but Diamond able to chase down that haze spike, doing good damage on towards Conan, and he's going to have to just walk off behind the turret, not having to use his flash though, which could be crucial.
See, on bot lane, I try to make a point, but people kept finding and interrupting me. I actually don't like the way that Gambit played his early lane. I would have liked a little more push coming out of the Morg, full forced. Leona, in my opinion, should have started with E as well, because it's very rare that we see supports actually getting hit by the Leona stun, but it ended up happening. So Gambit was a little bit behind, more than they should be on that lane early, but then the WE support started roaming, and that's really bad.
Oh, we're going to see the pushing on towards Darren, actually uses his flash. There is a Bloodwell pop, but will they be able to finish off straight away afterwards? Comes back up with not much health, and there is first blood coming down for Team WE.
Yeah, that's a really good gank. Lane gank, Renekton stun, Vi connects their Q. Really well played. They got him down, got his Bloodwell, just camped him. He wasn't in tower range just yet, and that's just very well executed, well-timed gank, and I think that's going to be crucial to get Renekton rolling, because if you do that a few times, then Renekton is going to start 1v1ing the Aatrox over and over and over, and that's going to draw a lot of pressure to top, and yeah, W needs that, because right now their bottom lane is behind.
And Flash, of course, was burnt there by Darren as well. We do see that Wei Xiao taking quite a lot of damage there behind that turret, that piercing arrow coming through. Wei Xiao going super low, not quite being taken down, but he has to be very, very careful how that one goes. And with that pressure, Gambit's bottom lane is going to be headed back. A good lead that Genja has on his first buy.
And see, this is how a good jungler wins the bottom lane without it being being close. He goes for the enemy red, which forces the enemy jungler to go for your red, which forces in turn your support to try and help him, because the W support roam to assist his jungler on the red, but at the same time he leaves his lane open, gets behind on lane. Because Diamond Prox makes an aggressive move on the left side of the map, the right side of the map gets punished for that because W has to react to it. And this is just good play by Gambit, and you see the bot lane is ahead, but that's not necessarily all to their credit. It's just a team effort.
Well, we see a big roam once again coming in towards this mid lane. Actually, Alex trying to do the damage there on towards Sukin, but a good Zenith play landing. There is Vi coming in as well. Alex falling very, very low. Surely going to get finished off here. Conan picks up the kill.
Yeah, he was holding his Ignite for the latest moment possible. He didn't want to take that kill, but he had to. So the initial take of the Ignite that he casted at the very end took down that kill. I really like the flash Zenith blade he did there. That was spot on. That was a good catch. And Alex got a little unlucky. He almost sniped the Gragas there at the edge, but it just wasn't enough. And that's the roam paying off. You know, earlier the roam didn't pay off. This time it did. W taking risks, and this time they're paying off.
Good stuff, and that's going to allow Conan to actually pick himself up the workings of that Sightstone. The Ruby Crystal coming in for him. This bottom lane, though, still behind in CS. Indeed, suffering from those couple of roams that Conan has brought in. Did get that kill on the last move towards that mid lane, but we'll see how that actually impacts this bottom lane. Actually, Genji going to be forced away there. Tries to throw down the slow. There's the Zenith blade coming in. Good binding comes out from Eddie. Will they be able to actually finish off Conan, though? He's pretty deep in there, but with that Ruby Crystal, he's pretty tanky already.
And that was a really good game read by Wei Xiao, because he was about on the verge of getting frozen if he didn't have pressure on the lane, but he dashed in, knew the creeps would block the binding, and he knows that he can 1v1 in a burst out-traded Varus, and he backed off immediately. Conan, however, misread that as an all-in. Went in, sure he dealt some damage, but he did a little poke, but you see how much room of error he has to spare. He's still 80% of HP. So this is why if the lane ever gets behind the Morgana Varus lane, they don't trouble against Leon Ocean. But right now, they're doing pretty okay for themselves.
Dark binding coming down there. Alex Sitch actually is going to be moving away from this mid lane. Just wants to get that ward down, actually spotting the pink ward, as you say, and will be able to actually take that one out. So nice little bit of vision denial coming in from Alex Sitch. He's slightly behind in that mid lane, but we'll see how that one all develops. Up until now, Alex dying that one time. We'll see how that all goes down later on.
Again, just having a harder time poking down Wei Xiao right now because he has his Vampiric Scepter finished, so he can lifesteal up after every poke. And Conan, surprisingly, is getting back into this laning phase. That roam really paid off for him, getting enough experience of that kill. If that would have failed, that would have been very detrimental to the laning phase, but he seems to be somewhat on equal level. I think Genja and Edward are going to hit level 6 first, but before that happens, we'll see gank on top lane.
We are going to see the dive coming in on towards Darien. Going to get knocked up there by Vi. Bloodwell is available once again, but he doesn't have much health, that's for sure. And actually, it's going to be Sao Mei that goes in right onto him. There is the knockup coming in. Sao Mei tanking up the turret. He's actually going to fall from this one. So Darien, despite going down, does pick up the first kill for Gambit.
This seems a little greedy by Roll Elite, but I just want to point out one thing. Darien's Bloodwell came up the second Renekton stun, not earlier. I just checked it in a miniature replay here. 1 second before the actual stun landed and they committed into the all-in, Darien got his revive passive back up. Else that would have been one of the cleanest dives in this game so far.
Little bit too late from WE. That is the second death, of course, for Darien. And not only that, he's a good 22 CS behind at this point, having a little bit of a hard time in that top lane against Renekton. Meanwhile, Diamond is moving down towards his bot lane. We've just seen a bit of a ping on towards the ward there. I'm not sure that they know that Diamond's around, but either way, Diamond not seeing an opportunity is going to be backing off.
They have to be careful anyways. They're facing 2 level 6s without a solar flare. That's going to be, and then no flash on Leona. And the stacked minion wave, there's no way they can fight that. However, Rue is trying to sneak a Drake here, and it might just work.
Well, he's all alone on that one. There is that one ward from Gambit inside of the death bush. Yeah, they're not going to spot this one. Pretty much a free dragon here for WE. Nice little sneak coming in. There is a smite, and that will put them 800 gold in the lead.
That's pretty impressive.
And on this bottom lane, actually, Alex starting to move down. And they're like, yeah, let's.
There you're gonna
I've
find
got
out.
a great idea,
This is
guys.
the worst feeling.
Let's do dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of gone. At least he got a pink ward though.
Yeah, right now they're trying to find out, because pink wards are everlasting. Usually you could at least see how long that pink ward has been there, and usually it's placed by the jungler that does the Drake. So, but right now they're everlasting, so you have no idea of like backtracing when they did that Drake. So you have a rough timer in your head. If World Elite plays this smart now, they will just have the next dragon as well because they have the timing control on it.
And his bottom lane, Genja continues to rack up that CS lead, gone for a double Doran's Blade start on this one. You see on the other side the Vamp Scepter picked up for Wei Xiao. Meanwhile in the top lane, Darian, no Bloodwell available, obviously did die earlier on, picking up a kill. In fact, Gambit's only kill up until now, and actually he's going to dive in towards Xiaomei. Diamond's actually off to the side, and this should be a kill surely for Gambit. He's going to try and push through, and there is Vi coming in, straight on towards Diamond. The Solar Battery comes down. Diamond is actually going to fall from that one. Expertly baited in by Xiaomei.
And this is because Xiaomei is so far ahead that he wins the trade already, and they're just going to dive Darian here again.
Yeah, he's going to have a few problems with this one. Slice and Dice though comes around. Actually, it was Ruo that was tanking up the turret, and that leaves them at 5-1. Meanwhile, down in the bottom lane, a lot of damage coming on towards Edward. No kill though.
Very impressive play on top lane. Because Xiaomei was so far ahead on his Renekton, he could take the bad trade for a lot longer. He knew his Vi coming in. I'm sure he was surprised by Diamond procs, so the good thing is he backed out. Then he read the situation perfectly. He knew his jungler was coming in, and they turned on Eve, and you saw Eve is a strong damage jungler with a lot of damage potential, but you saw just how quick she dropped in a 2v1 scenario where Vi just locks her up. And this is World Elite kind of outscaling this top 2v2, and this Renekton is going to be a problem.
Going to or is already? That's the question on that one. 3-1-1. Tiamat already in there. And looking good here for WE. Meanwhile, down on the bottom lane, big wave of minions in there. Will they go for the turret at this point? Edward just coming back in towards that bottom lane now. Upgrade up towards that Frostfang. Got himself a sight stone as well. There must be a good chunk of gold actually on the owner. About 1,000 gold to spend as he goes back home.
And I wonder what Gambit's answer to this is. Like, they want to try to get the mid tower, probably not going to happen against Gragas. Top lane, they can't go for 1v1s nor 2v2s. I'd almost feel like their one saving grace would be a snare into Varus ulti combo followed up at an Eve on bottom lane. However, WE is going to read this, and they should send their jungle bottom. They're just securing the Booba for Lul now, so she's still fine on her own. But I don't see an opening for Gambit right now, other than the bot lane, and I feel it's a little too obvious, so World Elite has to be careful there.
You see, blue buff's being given over to both mid laners. Let's talk about those mid laners. A little bit of a lead there for Sukim on Gragas. 114 to 105 CS. The Fiend's Unholy Grail finish on both sides of things. Double Doran Dream though to the single one in favor of WE. So
pretty much neutralizes the mid lane. Both carries have a lot of wave clear on a 20% CDR item. As I said, it just ties it up. If none of them go aggressive, nothing's gonna happen in the mid lane. I think both junglers are gonna end up buying bottom, yeah. Ooh, the sweep misses. It misses the ward.
Misses
and he shows anyways.
Yeah, Ruo just coming straight through from that one. Saw that Gambit had in fact backed away from it, so probably had a bit of an idea that that ward was in fact in that brush. Although, as you said, the sweeper did go a little bit off to the side. Either way, WE now moving up through that Gambit jungle may look to make an impact on that mid lane against Alex Ich.
Yeah, they basically spill over the pressure on the bottom lane. They push up and roam mid. I want to point out the pink ward placement at both sides of mid as well, so they know that Diamond procs will never be flanking them through the river. They know he can only come from lane, and this makes playing against an Evelyn so much easier. So I have to commend them on their pink ward placement.
Oh, they're coming in behind the turret. They're actually going to dive in there. Actually, we do see the solar flare missing. In fact, most things missing there. There is the assault and battery coming in. Wild growth was used by Alex Ich. Conan got the HP to survive as well. Really well done by WE.
Barring a possible knock-up on a Zenith blade to cancel it, Alex played it as perfect as he could. So I think once he got into that situation, there was not much more he could do, other than maybe predict it, but that's down to his team effort, just not enough vision, not enough information. WE, you see, they're so far ahead that even missing the solar flare and not executing the gank to the fullest potential, however, solar flare missing zones him forward, which means he gets zoned into Gragas. It's basically a guaranteed dive anyway, so they're exerting their power right now, and Gambit's in a really tough spot.
Really tough indeed. They are already falling way behind in gold. 3,000 at this point. Not quite 15 minutes into the game as Wei Xiao here is going to be joining once again. Can Ruo actually get involved from this one? He doesn't have his ultimate available though. Not able to lock anyone up.
Even if he did, he wouldn't use it because Black Shield would be too easy to use. And that's the strength of the Morgana, but they're going in.
There is the Black Shield coming down, but Edward already taking a lot of damage. Actually, Conan having to flash away. We see the diamond there for the counter gank. And actually, I think WE have to get away from this one. Not much that they can really do about that one. Edward surviving in the end. end as well. It's a nice kill back for Gambit.
And this is what I said before. This is the only way Gambit's going to get back into this game. It's counter-ganking on bottom, making the Leona Vi combo greed into a black shield, putting the Morgulti, walk back, and counter-gank with EU, and Gambit executing that perfectly. And that was really close.
That was incredibly close. Like, ridiculously.
That's why you don't base near lane. Exactly, again, W has a lot of vision. They know exactly where you are at all times, except if you're invisible, aka Evelyn, and that's Gambit's saving grace right now, because you can barely outward an Evelyn. You can almost predict her, in a sense, with some pink wards on key locations, so you know she's not past certain areas, but even then you still have no idea where she is.
Oh, Alex, you are in trouble. There goes the explosive cast. We've got Conan coming around. There is a solar flare. Locks up Alex perfectly. He's used a wild growth, but it's going to do absolutely nothing to stop that one. Salme picks up another kill. It's now 4-1-1. So strong at this early stage of that Renekton.
Yeah, I really like what they're doing. They're using the advantage in different lanes to help out the mid lane and just get more advantage there instead of trying to tunnel on the bottom lane, make it less predictable.
And there is the helping hand of Gambit, helping that dragon going down. Piercing arrow and the dark binding coming a little bit too late. And that is another dragon going over to WE. They are now 6,000. No, they're not. I can't count Crepo. 4,000 gold in the lead.
It feels like 6,000 with the lead they have right now. Again, Diamond's coming out on bottom. This is the right call.
Going in towards Wei Xiao. Is he going to actually be able to turn this one around? We see the Ru is in fact going in there. We do see the Assault and Battery going on towards Diamond. He's going to flash away. Damage coming on to all three of them. Edward going to pop his ultimate. And actually WE going quite low. But there is a dash in from Wei Xiao. He picks up Edward, but it's going to go down. Piercing arrow goes through two of them. Picks up a double kill there.
Is that Genja?
Brilliant for Genja.
Yes, it is. Damn, that's so well played. This is Gambit being behind on lane. Really good reaction. Diamond coming in for the gank. Edward baiting it out. Suddenly Vi turns up, and they didn't expect that Vi to show up, but they managed that perfectly. They walk back, turn, walk back again. Sure, they lose one of them. Wei Xiao goes in. I think Wei Xiao plays this pretty well, but then Genja just mans up and snipes him later. So here's Eve going in. But they get surprised by Genja getting super chunked. Then the Vi comes in. Vi ultis on the closest target on Diamond. I think that's really good again. Edward barely makes it out alive, but just look at Genja right now. He's walking back, he sees an opening, and he starts channeling in just a bit, and then he's just going to snipe both of them. And it's pretty beautiful. Actually, Wei Xiao goes in first, and then he sees the opening. That reaction. Really good bind by Eddie as well right before he dies. Keeps him in place, and then just allows Genja to just line him up, you know, where I'm going to shoot him. Just get both of them at one go.
Oh, Diamond actually forced you to take that blue of Salme coming in. You actually see the wild growth being used, but he doesn't care. Whimsy is used as well, but Salme is going to pick up another kill. He's going down though. Shutdown goal goes over to Darian.
Plus assist. This is a really big win for Gambit. They get a shutdown, plus the assist gold on the shutdown, and they only lose one member without giving an assist to the enemy team. Again, Gambit comes out with a win. They're being very resilient here.
And call that last snipe what you want. May say a little bit lucky maybe going into that second man, but I'm going to say
I don't think it's lucky.
Totally planned from Genja. He's now got an Infinity Edge, by the way. First big item coming out for Genja. Infinity Edge on Varus.
This is saying Genja, well, I'm comfortable playing this game. I'll get my lifesteal later. I'm just going to snipe all of you and come mid-game and have the perfect 3-item combination.
Oh, going in on towards Alex. There is a solar flare coming down and actually has to flash that one in the end. Conan got those boost of mobility. He's pretty quick. You really have to use flashes when he's that fast.
Guy's waiting in the bottom here. He wants Genja.
Oh,
out of range for Black Shield.
Yeah, getting on towards Genja as well. Edward actually going to be the focus though in the end. Wei Xiao is going to pick that one up, and Genja is forced to flash from that. We did see that Sukim did come down as well. This is going to be the second turret of the game for WE.
See, I think Gambit got a little lucky there. They could have both died. Genja was out of range for Black Shield. Edward would have dropped regardless. I think if I target the Genja there, they could have had 2 kills, but that's just minor details. Really good roam by WE, and they're catching people in jungle again.
Trying to have a look in now towards Diamond, but actually Ru going pretty down low.
Darian.
Actually has to back away. Darian is going to be right in the middle of them, does have his blood as well. That is going to get popped. Can he get in there for more kills though? Actually, he's blown to pieces by Sukim, and now Conan being chased down by Alex Hitch. Bottom side as well, Diamond is going for Sukim, gets that kill. Conan goes down as well.
And WE is just trying to get too much in one go, and this is Genja showing up again. Double kill immediately, follows through the fight and gets another kill. This guy is playing so well. He's 5-0-0 without any lifesteal, or maybe just picked up his Vampiric Scepter, but he's just going to town on World Elite.
And we don't see that much Varus these days, but we see that Genja is
We're seeing
definitely
it
able
now.
to do, and we see that replay once again, and look how low Ruo went before things even got started.
I like that Darien comes from the side. He knows he has a revive. Basically, they clump up to Darien to try and get him, and then E flanks him. 3-man ulti. Alex goes back in after going out. Genja comes in with a double snipe, and this is all Darien. He jumps in. People want to kill him. He gets the revive. He wants to... Like, the people want to kill him again, you know? When you see somebody with a Guardian Angel or a Zillion ulti, you're going to group up around him, and that's a mistake, because he groups you up for AoE abilities, like the Varus snipe, like the Evelyn flank with the ulti, and this is Gambit. They're coming from all different sides and angles, and it's so hard to deal with. And given the fact that they were 4 to 5k down, and they're only down 1,000 gold, or 2,000 gold right now, it's pretty insane.
You see that Darren gone in for that Ravenous Hydra, also got himself Negatron Cloak and the Chain Vest, so going up to a GA. And that's just Darren, you know? You've got your blood, but that's just not quite enough. You need a third life.
I really like the Gambit playstyle of picking up early Guardian Angels. On paper, it sounds so horrible, but when they play, you know, one guy goes in, you walk to him, 4 guys hit you. He walks out, you turn to another guy. He does the same, you know, going in and out. It's like multiple accordions working together. And then once you finally get somebody, well, he'll just revive, stall you for 3 seconds, jumps in again, jumps out. It's so hard to play against that when they play it correctly. However, if they make one mistake, well, you kill the guy, you kill him again, then you kill the next guy. So it's a very tricky style of teamfighting. But Gambit is definitely confusing World Elite right now, and it's paying off.
I see Golem's been taken away. Actually, Diamond coming across to that one, but doesn't want to get involved on the fighting. Darian's going to be feeling a little bit more confident now. Got himself that bit of armor, that Ravenous Hydra as well. Is still way behind in CS and kills as well.
Yeah, but given what happened, he actually managed to stay somewhat the same distance behind, if that makes sense. And whenever he died, he made it worse for his team. So he's been playing pretty well coming back into the game. It was all on bottom. Like, Gambit had that game pretty much lost, but the fact that they kept turning around those kills on bottom stalled the game long enough for Darren's Aatrox to scale a little better, and Renekton falls off to the mid game as well. So time is playing into Gambit's favor.
Speaking of time, Dragon is coming up here. Has now actually spawned in there. We see that both teams posturing around for that one. Actually,
Diamond's
WE
flanking again.
off to the side. Yeah, Diamond is going to be flanking. Will he be able to get in? There is a volley put down by Wei Xiao. Dragon is going to be pulled away from Ru. Actually going very, very low from this one. Will he fall though? Sao Mei getting involved. Edward is surely going to fall. Sao Mei is able to pick up that kill, but that is going to be a 2-for-1 for now. Flash is coming in as well. Wei Xiao going to be focused down. Darien gets a slow off. He can... No, they've actually left him alone. They've got Sao Mei there, very, very low. Darien waiting up to the side in case he jumps over. Genja is now godlike. Wei Xiao is trying to escape. Darien dives straight in underneath the turret. There's the shield from Lulu, and that is the first ace of the game, going the way of Gambit, and they get Dragon afterwards.
Thank you, Gambit, so much for showing people how to play this composition. You see, Diamond was flanking him, and even though he got spotted, he got a 4-man ulti off. I think we're getting the replay right here, so I'll wait. 4-man ulti comes in. Okay, Darren's on your left side, Era's on your right side. You Vi ulti, but it gets countered by Black Shield. This is why you pick Morgana into Vi. Look at Diamond, full HP. Vi has nothing left. He walks back into the arrow almost, and this is just, at this point, the fight's over. I really like what Eddie's doing. He's keeping 2 people busy, dies for his team, while his team cleans up. Genja's on the left side, full HP, cleaning up. Doesn't even need lifesteal. Darren's full HP as well. Diamond is really healthy, and they're just cleaning up right now. And this is amazing, the way Gambit plays this comp. They're not all coming from the same side. No, they're just zerging around. You never know who's coming from what side. And this you need really good communication to beat Gambit when they fight like this.
Yeah, so that final kill onto Sao Mei, and then Wei Xiao trying to back there cheekily underneath the turret. Big shield coming out from Lulu. A great fight for Gambit. Puts them ahead in kills, puts them ahead now in gold as well. 41,000 to the 39,000 of WE.
And it wouldn't be Genja if it wasn't Genja, because he went after his Infinity Edge. He built a Zephyr. Because Genja. Anyways.
Thanks, that. I was just going to say, give me your expert opinion on that Genja build. I don't think anyone's an expert when it comes to Genja builds except Genja.
Well, he wants some tenacity, I guess. Well, it works if he survives from crucial CC, but technically he still has that Black Shield for that. He gives him a lot of attack speed though, to work with his passive and just get as many of those procs on and procs them with the spells. He's playing real well, 7-0-1 for Genja. He controlled the early to mid game, especially for his team. But look at Darien right now, look at Diamond procs. They pull their weight, you know. Even if they fall behind early to mid to late game, you can guarantee that they're all pulling their weight. Even Edward's playing pretty well. He's working on his Mikhail's Crucible, and that's going to completely neutralize any effort Leonon's going to have in this game.
Gambit right now stacking up around the Baron. Actually, Diamond's going to get pulled in, and again the Black Shield is going to save one of them. Salmate going pretty low. Varus ultimate goes in. That's going to lock up the entire WWE team. First kill is going to come down on towards Conan. Diamond now on the killing spree. Salmate trying to get away, but it's not going to work out. Diamond actually going ridiculously strong at the front. He's looking for Sukim. Doesn't quite get that kill, but Gambit get 2 kills plus that middle inner turret, outer turret, and they might get the inner as well.
Or they might just turn to Baron. This is why I love Morgana support so much into a Vi composition or a Leona, because if they look for a catch in the mid game, you just Black Shield and they get baited by it. And this is definitely Team WE not being comfortable playing against a Morg. He can't commit that far against a target when you don't have vision about what's happening behind the target if they have a Morgana. That Black Shield single-handedly turned that fight around because it lined them up for Gambit catching people out, and they're doing it again.
Oh, where's Jerome? Out of position there. I mean,
he has to try.
At this point, has to try really for that Baron, because Gambit already well into that one. They're gonna take it 17-12 up in kills. 6,000 gold now is the lead for Gambit, and I said it before, day 1 is not Gambit day. Day 2 and 3 where Gambit becomes strong.
I'm really impressed with Diamond's Eve. There's a reason people ban it out a lot, because his ultis are so spot on, and while they look easy, sure, they bunch up, he holds them until the right moment and hits 3 or 4 people every time.
As Conan just trying to wrestle some vision control back here for WE, because they've been losing out on that one quickly. 5,000 gold lead, 5,500 it really is by this point. Not going to be easy to come back on. We can see that Darian now has that GA in place with his Spirit Visage and that Ravenous Hydra as well. So, and this is where Darian feels his most comfortable. You know, it's low risk to dive in there, even on the turrets.
Yeah, the thing is, even if he dives and he gets killed, he groups them up, and whenever they group, they just really get screwed over by Gambit's composition. Now, earlier I had a hard time seeing what Gambit's out was, you know? Every game has an out, like one way for you to win that game. I have a hard time seeing what World Elites is. Yeah, Gambit's gonna siege, they're not gonna split push, but what are you gonna combat that siege with? Gragas has alright to good wave clear, but other than that, Leona can't really go in because of Black Shield, Vi can't really go in because of Black Shield. Even if they do, Lulu ulti pops, Darian will dive in, everyone will get an ulti lined up, you walk into a Varus ulti. I just don't see what they're gonna do 5v5, and at the meanwhile, Edwards is just chaining out those bindings, and eventually one of them is gonna hit, lead to a poke, and they will have to drop this tower. Because Darian is so tanky, they can even backdoor it.
I have to ask as well, from the picks and bans, we see that Annie and Thresh not available. You pick up the Leona, it's going to be surely obvious that a Morgana's going to come in. And I say obvious, but they look over towards Asia, they don't really have that support in Morgana. We are going to see them diving in here on towards Wage Out. Diamond now going to be unstoppable. Wild Growth coming in. Everyone going very, very low. Killing spree for Alex Ich. Genja right up at the front once again. This could be game for Gambit. Double kill for Genja. He goes 9-0-5. On Varus.
So this time Diamond Prox opens up with his ult, he slows them, Darian jumps into the fray, and I believe he got the Wild Growth, and what a Wild Growth. 4 men up, leading to a surrender.
Surrender coming in here from Team WE, and Gambit do it once again. Rubbish on day 1, brilliant on day 2. We'll see how far they can go from this one. 28 minutes and 45 seconds. The win from Gambit keeps their dreams alive here at the Intel Extreme Masters.
And what a win it was. It was not just a simple Gambit stomp. No, it was Gambit falling behind. Everybody had written them off. Everyone thought, okay, Gambit, you just didn't show up today. And they do. They're so resilient. I barely even saw an out in that game. And they turned it around. They identified what they had to do. Leave top lane, leave mid lane, go bot lane, and try to somehow outplay against all odds. And they did. And just squeezed the life out of World Elite in the end. And just so well played by Gambit.
You can see there, WE disappointing, I think, from their side of things this tournament. I mean, 2 losses in a row. We've seen that IG came into this one, put up a stronger fight, although many have argued that Group B is the stronger of the 2 groups here, and it's kind of hard to argue with that one. Gambit yesterday got trodden all over by TPA. They're going to have a revenge game coming up next, though.
Yeah, I think they're going to be learning a lot from that game. Going to be an interesting preview, but probably leave that to the analysts later.
And speaking of the analysts, we're going to go right there because Quickshot, Deficio and Froggen are ready to break down that brilliant win from Gambit.
What an unbelievable game. I will be honest, in the first 15 minutes I was calling it against Gambit. I felt like the lead that WE had built up and had earned themselves was going to be so difficult to bounce back from. and the over-aggression from W ends up biting them in the backside. Gambit pull it back, regardless of Genja's build. They managed to have a fantastic turnaround. Let's talk very generally about the game before we get into some specific replays. Deficio, what was your take?
Every time we had a team fight, it went in Gambit's favor, and I have to give so much credit to someone like Genja and of course Diamond on Evelyn, because we see the big dragon fight we have, it's 4-man ultimate from Diamond, then he gets dove onto, and then the rest of Gambit just comes in, piles onto WE, and kills them in every single team fight. Once they got out of this laning phase, went in favor of Gambit. It's a very strong play.
I agree that Gambit was really strong in the mid to late game, but in the early game, they lost heavily. You saw the dive onto Darian at the start, and then you saw a lot of dives in mid onto Alex. You saw the solo dragon by Vi. Like, they even had warded up for the dragon. They just didn't expect the Vi to solo a dragon. So they lost out completely in the early game again. And that's how they lost yesterday.
So just like in the LCS, Gambit have a very poor laning phase. They pull themselves back in the mid game. We've got a replay of one of those dives. This one takes place at about 40 minutes in the game. I want to jump straight into it because the early game was just littered with WE aggression, dive after dive after dive, and they managed to make it work. Froggen, talk me through what's happening here.
Okay, so before we get to actually starting this replay, I want to highlight Vi was walking through this ward bottom. There was a ward here from Gambit. There was wards all over the bottom side of the map, except for the tribers. So they just walk from the bottom lane side of the map all the way to the mid lane. They just walked all the way in, and they just simply go for the dive. And if we play it here, the Leona completely misses the ultimate. Vi completely misses the Q. Despite of all that, they still get the free kill. And like even when Necton joins in because he pushed up the top lane. And that's the World Elite we wanted to see yesterday, but they just didn't show up. But the early game from WE was extremely good.
Yeah, so that was the first replay. We can get that one down. We'll get the next one lined up. Deficio's going to talk us through the team fight that really got Gambit back into the game. You know, as the game progressed, WE continued to push down the lanes. They kept diving. And you have to feel that Morgana pick with Soul Shackles and Black Shield was fairly effective in some of those engagements, regardless of Edward's targeting. And it was just WE arguably putting themselves in a poor position. They kept fighting over and over and over. What do you think they could have done to have avoided being caught out?
WE kept fighting bottom lane, and the bottom lane was losing from WE. They were down like 20 to 30 CS. They didn't really do anything on the bottom lane. Like, Conan was roaming a few times, and that might be why they were down. Edwards had a base where Shao was flashing over a wall, but the base went off anyway. Stuff like that. And then the Vi, the Leona, and the Lucian tried to fight the Evelyn, Baus, and Morgana that has a ton of CC. They're so tanky with the Evelyn ultimate as well. They can never get onto Genja. I was actually fearing a bit in the early game because Ed was focusing with the Black Shield. He was always Black Shielding himself instead of Genja, which led to some questionable 3 versus 3 skirmishes, but really well played by Gambit in these.
Well, talk us through the next team fight. This was a little later in the game, closer to 20 minutes. This was a team fight that we were talking about. WE, they just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper into Gambit territory, and finally Gambit were able to group up. Let's pull that replay up on your screen first of all, so you can actually see what we're talking about. And Deficio, talk me through the fight.
Yeah, so WE are doing the Chinese style of just hyper-aggressive early game. They actually already picked on a kill to Edward, but if you notice when we get into the replay here, the ultimate's being down from WE. There's no bio ultimate, there's no ultimate on Lucian, and there's no ultimate on Leona, so they go really, really deep into the area of Gambit, even though they don't actually have the tools to fight. And if we just roll it here, you will notice how they go in for the engage, and without any ultimates, and with, of course, Darian coming down here in the bot lane, this is actually the key thing, that he's roaming down, jumping in, joining for the fight. And this is where you see no ultimates except for the Gragas ultimate from World Elite side. And that is so aggressive, and that is actually so risky play by them. It's the thing that turns it around for Gambit here, because they're 4k gold behind. But after this fight, they get so much. Every single member from World Elite is going to die. They're going to finish off Lucian first, and then of course they're just going to chase them down. Notice Genja coming from the base, joining into the fight. And the reason we show this is simply because when you decide to fight, after you have actually used all your ultimate on killing the support, deep inside the area of the enemy jungle, you have no vision of the enemy top laner. Your own top laner, who's 5-2-1, is up in the top lane. He's not even there to join in. You really go way too deep, and that's what Gambit punished. That's why they got back in the game.
Yeah, so that is the end of the replay. We can get rid of that one from your screens for now. We do actually have the interview ready, so we'll talk on Gambit versus TPA in a moment once that's wrapped up. I do have to ask you about Genji's build because we were discussing it. Infinity Edge on his first back after grabbing a double kill in excess of farming. Zephyr as his second item. Arguing the effectiveness, considering how well he played, is somewhat difficult, but it is very not standard.
Well, normally, especially for Genji, who is a person who loves to use his abilities as an AD carry and not focus too much on auto-attacking, you would go Bloodthirst or Last Whisper on Varus for ultimate poke onto your Q, and also against the lineup here with both Leona and Vi obviously diving onto you, Renekton following in. You normally are not going to get too many auto-attacks off, that's why you want to go this ability build with Last Whisper and Bloodthirster, but of course, due to the Black Shield and due to Lulu ultimate, I actually think he decided to go with more auto-attack based build because he felt he was safe and he could actually auto-attack in the team fights.
It also gives tenacity, if recalls correctly, so
it
at
does
times
too.
the Black Shield's not there, doesn't have to go for those Merc trades. So anyway, guys, I do believe that the interview is ready, and if memory serves, it will be Diamond on stage with Shark, so let's see what he has to say.
Thank you very much, Quick Shot. And this is indeed Diamond that has joined me here from Gambit after that convincing win versus Team WE. I want to backtrack a little bit to yesterday first. What did you guys talk about in the team after that game versus TPA? Because it just seemed like you guys didn't show up.
We had a really hard time yesterday. We failed a lot. I think we got outpicked and outplayed really, really hard just from the beginning of the game. Then we was talking about like what should we do early to not fall behind that hard. What should we fix with our pick and ban phase? And it seems like we improved a bit, but still.
You talk about not falling behind early, and then you come into this game and it's not going that well early. Tell me a little bit about the pressure that they put, especially on the top lane in the beginning of this game.
This early game was not that bad for us, actually. If Darian would not made a mistake on the top side, I didn't see it, but Darian said that he made a mistake, then everything would be fine, because Y was trying to make a pressure, but she actually forgot to farm some minions. And then she fell behind, and then in team fights, I was just too OP for them.
Were you keeping an eye on the bottom lane when Genji was sniping?
Genji is awesome Varus. I think he is the best Varus in the world, so I vote for his Varus every time.
Was it the best Varus build in the world too?
Yeah, of course.
Then tell me about the mid game, and you guys practically, when it came to the mid game, you had full control. How do you make sure that you close it out?
Actually, coming to mid game, we had a very fed Renekton on the top side, so they thought that we should not ever go there and should just make a pressure on their bottom side, which we made really good. Y failed her ulti on the dragon when Edward made a great spell shield on me, and then we just snowballed them from there.
So obviously you're playing here in Katowice. Last year you were victorious here. You guys are fighting your way back from the lower bracket. How's it been coming back here, seeing this crowd?
I'm really happy to be here in the second time. I liked the previous year very much. I like the city, I like the country. I like you guys. Thank you for coming and watching us.
Well, thank you very much, Diamond. Good luck in your next matchup. And that matchup of Gambit versus TPA will be coming up right after this, so stay put.